everyone. It's Hanumanasana Day because it's February 29th. It's a leap year. And Hanuman was the Hindu monkey-faced god who was a servant and so devoted to Lord Rama that he went and rescued Sita, Rama's wife, from the evil demon Ravana that had stolen her. When he opened up his chest, which is how you will see him depicted often, with his legs, straddling across the ocean, it is said that it is actually Rama and Sita that you see there in the place of his heart. So he is the symbol of Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion, and he is a deity that teaches us about true love and service and devotion. So I have some props here because Hanumanasana is pretty aspirational for a lot of people. It used to be my favorite pose, and I was hurting myself in it because I had a lot of flexibility, especially on one side, but I would hang in the ligaments instead of having a lot of balance and strength and support around the joint. So I retired Hanuman for a long time. I retired the pose. And the way that I do it and teach it now is much more sustainable, and it ensures that I have space all the way around the joints. I'm going to show you some options for that, okay? And know that Hanumanasana can be done lying on the ground with your leg in a strap, just mimicking the pose, not weight bearing, not really putting yourself in any precarious position. And it can also be done with the back knee down or the front foot flexed. And what I mean by that, I'll show you, is really more of an Anjaneyasana than a Hanumanasana in the full expression of the pose. And so I'm going to take my hands on blocks because I think it's a really nice way to teach people to warm up and approach the pose. This is also a caveat, a really nice way for people to do poses like plank and downward facing dog when their wrist hurts, because putting the hands on the blocks changes the angle of the pelvis and puts less weight in the hands. All right, so bringing the right foot forward. Also, you're really able to kind of step through. And so if you are a person who struggles with being able to bring the foot all the way forward, lifting the hands gives you a lot more room to step through. So the back knee comes down, crescent moon pose, Anjaneyasana. Now, Anjana was the mother of Hanuman, which is why he's also referred to with that name as well. And so here, I'll move this block. You want to make sure that you're in the ball of the front foot. You want to make sure you're in the ball of the back foot so you don't have a lot of weight in the knee. And from here, you see you're opening the hip flexors, the quads. You're working on extension of the back leg and flexion of the front leg, which in the full pose, I'll just show you, this is the split. And where it breaks down for a lot of people is that if they don't have the propping up underneath them, they'll fall to one side. And then this shoulder gets jacked up and the energy is just all not in a good place. So you want to stay in the middle of yourself. It's kind of like pigeon, but you're just flexing, extending the knee and flexing the hip all the way forward. Now, what happens with the use of props, the blocks under the hands, is it becomes a lot about the strength in the upper body and rounding and collapsing that way. And so what we really want is to have our pelvis on the floor, and that's the aspirational part. So I can put this block underneath me, so my perineum is plugged in. My buttock bones are not on the block, which is why I like the medium height, because it's narrow. And so I think about finding the center of the front foot and pulling the right buttock bone back. The left butt, the back leg, moves over to its own side, so I'm really plugged in the ball of my foot. And here I am. Now, if I had 3 blocks, right, some people would still need to be a little bit more forward because the potential, the front body is not open enough, or they need more height under their pelvis. But eventually, just like Hanuman, you can right, open the whole pose. It feels so good. And what really feels good is when you come out of it, because you're creating so much space around the back of the front leg hip and the front of the back leg hip. So when you come up and take my block out, when you come up and back into dog pose, from doing it on one side, it's like, oh, wow, there's so much space there. Oh, but there's so much space there. And then bring the other leg forward. So I was so high up that I was able to step past where I would normally be for Anjaneyasana, where it would be the heel underneath the knee. So I can warm up here, really get into it, feel the extension of the back, leg, hip, lift the chest. So I'm really thinking left knee forward, right inner heel back, crown of head, chest up. I'm opening up a lot of internal space. And then bring my hands down, and I'll show you again, I can actually step through farther. This is a nice way to get into it. Because if you're on a sticky mat, your foot doesn't really slide forward. But I can slide my back knee back, which takes my front leg more and more straight. Do that a couple times. You gotta back into it. And one more time, whenever you come to that place where it's like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to go any further. Notice my front knee is bent. That is a really nice way to ensure that you're not jamming the femur bone up to the front into the labrum around that cartilage that protects around the acetabulum, the hip socket. So I just put my block back in. Now I feel totally supported. It's a really nice thing to think about. You give the cue to draw the legs towards each other. So the front foot draws back, which just righted my pelvis a little bit, and the back foot draws forward. And that gives me a lot of stability for me to be able to open up the pose. And with this little bend to the knee, gives you that space here, so you really refine the fold, and that's what creates a lot of space in the hip socket when you come out of the pose, or that felt sense of a lot of space. So one more time, come up and back into a dog pose. Now the block might be too close to the ground for some of you. Well, you can do the full height of the block, but if you're not using the heavy cork or the wood block, it's kind of precarious and it can kind of tip over. So I like to have a lot of different height variations and combinations, right? We can do a block, 2 blocks, and a blanket. Bolsters are a really great option for this pose as well, okay? And so to have 2 blocks under your hands, get your bolster ready, step through, and I'll do my right side again, past, okay? My foot is going past my knee. I can move my back knee further back, and now I'm really free to find that dorsiflexion of the front leg, and eventually I can just slide into the pose. So if I want to take the bolster underneath me all the way, so I move my right buttock bone back and I'm plugged in here. If you need a little bit more, your bolster has lost its buoyancy, you can put a blanket on top, right? And so you can just keep layering it up. What's really nice about the bolster is you feel so supportive. It's not as precarious as just having the little block. And it's also height under the hands, right? So rather than having the hands forward. So you can lift up, pull the right buttock bone back as you reach the heel forward, which opens up the back of that hip joint, and then plug the back foot in. And really you come to a place where you're like, I can stay here all day, eventually. But like they say, it takes a lot of effort to make something look effortless. I'm just gonna bring the back leg around, fold it up. Nothing like a good Hanuman practice. Happy Yoga Therapy Thursday. Have a beautiful day.